of our largest accounts save over 10 million a year. I mean, so imagine you're getting overbilled $10 million a year. Now, I mean, I understand that's a large corporation, but even for a large corporation, that's a lot of money.
This week on the DesignRush Podcast, we're joined by Robert Day, founder and managing partner at WeAudit.com, a financial watchdog trusted by Fortune 500s and fast-growing companies alike. With decades of experience, Robert has a proven track record of exposing deceptive credit card processing fees and recovering millions in overlooked losses. Robert isn't just an auditor. He leads one of the industry's most respected merchant processing audit firms. His work has uncovered multi-million-dollar leakages, missed by even the most seasoned CFOs and finance teams, from helping one client recover $7 million in annual charges to saving another $10 million in just 30 days. This episode is your financial gut check if you're a CFO, founder, or scaling executive. Watch the episode on YouTube, listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This is the DesignRush Podcast, and I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Got a story worth sharing? Email us at spotlight@designrush.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe for the best industry insights. You have got 35 years of experience in the financial sector and 25 years specializing in merchant processing. So you've managed to build an extraordinary career dedicating yourself to helping businesses recover millions of dollars lost to hidden fees and inefficiencies. So what I would love to know is, when did that pivotal moment happen that inspired your move to establishing WeAudit.com?
Well, actually, that was kind of interesting. In my book, I talk about that as well. I kind of had my Jerry Maguire meltdown moment, if you will. I was actually sitting in a boardroom because I was an executive for the world's largest processor. And I finally just kind of said, hey, guys, I can't do this anymore. I got in banking to make my mother proud. Now I'm going to get out of banking because I can no longer tell my mother what I do. I mean, and really what they were talking about was just there again, adding more fees. And it didn't used to be that way. 1991, there were 2 interchange categories. I mean, some people say 4 because 2 for Visa, 2 for MasterCard. But the reality is it was very simple. It was very easy for businesses to look at their statements and look at their fees. And fast forward here now, 25 years from that day, or so. I mean, now we're talking about over 1,000 interchange categories, depending on how you kind of count them up. Really just rampant overbilling. I mean, some of our largest accounts save over 10 million a year. I mean, so imagine you're getting overbilled $10 million a year. Now, I mean, I understand that's a large corporation, but even for a large corporation, that's a lot of money. And for little businesses, it can still be $20,000 to $50,000, and that's still a lot of money for them. So,
looking back to when it first started, how would you say the mission of WeAudit.com has grown and evolved over the years?
Well, I would say it's probably not changed terribly too much, other than the fact that as we've grown, obviously our revenues have generated more. And from that, we've tried to really start giving back in a lot of ways that we couldn't do in the early years. In the early years, giving back was just making payroll. But now, we're putting a well in Haiti. This will be our second year to do that. We support an orphanage and down in Haiti and about 10 other charities in total. So a lot of people kind of nickname us like a Robin Hood, if you will. We're kind of taking from the large banks and credit card processors and then giving money back to a lot of charities to kind of help support them as well. So
in all this time, you've probably encountered quite a few clients, and I'm actually wondering if there is one client that you would say was your most memorable one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was probably pretty easy for me because we did the audit and we discovered that they were being overbilled $7 million a year. And it took them 3 years to sign up. Because large corporations, a lot of times they just, they drag their feet. They have other projects. And I always thought like, wow, what are you doing that you're working on that you really wouldn't want to take 15 minutes, right? But then they always think it's going to take longer than it does. And then to be fair, 15 minutes is the sign-up process. But still, I think we had everything resolved in about 30 days. I think they were shocked with that. They always, everybody's selling everybody. Everybody's, being deceptive in the world, it seems like, and everybody tells you it's going to be easy. So do you trust that? And I get it. And for a big corporation, they cannot afford a hiccup, right? So they can't afford to have any issues. So obviously they tread very slowly making that decision. But I thought, wow, that just cost you $21 million. So that you kind of remember that one, a 21 million weight.
If one were to just look at the mechanisms that you put in place when you're trying to show clients that this is something quite serious, and if you kind of nip it in the beginning, it avoids that becoming a very big future problem.
Yeah. So oftentimes I think probably one of the biggest things is they don't realize that, first of all, merchant processing is non-regulated. So they kind of think, hey, how bad can it be? Then there's also, they're embarrassed, I think, sometimes because, whether it's the CEO, CFO, corporate treasurer, somebody signed off on that deal, right? And now when they find out that maybe there's a few million to, again, over $10 million a year being lost, how do you go to your boss and say, hey, we just found out that we're losing all this money without looking bad? That's how they feel, like they're going to look bad. But prior to my book coming out, there was never anything out there about really how deceptive this industry is and how it works. And even my book is not going to, tell them how to fix everything. It's just bringing awareness to the problem, right? That they need to get an audit. So again, with it being non-regulated, you're not playing fair. It's not like 2 + 2 is 4 and you missed it, right? It is completely deceptive. Like our auditors, they're in a 2-year learning curve before they can even do an audit on their own. That just gives you, some, awareness there of the complexities, right? And just how difficult this is. And again, that's an auditor even working with a machine, a computer, right? That is doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the algorithms and everything that we code into it and write into it. So it takes both of that. It takes an algorithm and a program as well as a human eye. And the reason being is because no matter what we program into it, there's always some company that's found a new way to create a new fee, right? That these are not real fees like interchange clearing fee, but you can't train a computer to know what interchange clearing fee is until you found it once, right? And there is no such thing as an interchange clearing fee. It's a made up fee. And then they'll change it to interchange settlement fee. So as we find the fees, we program the software. They just rename the fees and keep on rolling. So it's extremely difficult. So businesses should never feel bad. CEOs, CFOs, et cetera, they should never feel bad that they haven't caught these things, right? Because there's no way to catch them. Unless you've got a lot of experience and a lot of expensive software.
With your experience and your background, maybe you can shed some light, but why is it like that? Why is it that it's not regulated?
Right. Well, a couple of things. We're trained to pay our bills, right? We look at bills and we're not really, and especially when it comes from such an authority, right? There's processors and then bank processors. And so they're one of the same, so whether you're dealing with a bank who's acting as a processor or you're just dealing with a processor by themselves, a standalone, right? The billing system is such that the bill comes to you, but they've already taken that money from you. So that's unique too. If you were to get a traditional bill, let's say you get a car repair, right? You're looking down, you're looking at all those itemized details. Well, first of all, you're going to be able to read those and know what they are, right? Oh, I replaced your starter, or I did this, or I did that, right? But if there was something on that bill that you didn't understand, you would ask them. You'd say, hey, what is this? There's a little code here. What is this, right? They may say, well, that's a shop fee or this or that. And then you can kind of go back and forth and, debate if that should have been in there or should have not. Was it disclosed in the original estimate, et cetera? This is very different. First of all, they take the money right out of your bank account before you ever even see the bill. You don't get the bill until on the 12th of the month, right? And then the bill has already been paid closer to the first of the month. They've already taken this money out of your account, right? So the money's already gone. And then now you're getting it. And now it's just all acronyms, all made up fees. An example, let's say it's something called EIRF, EIRF. If you call them, they're going to tell you that means interchange reimbursement fee. Okay, well, what is that? Well, that you did something wrong, right, is what they'll tell you. Well, depending on your business, it could mean missing zip code or zip code not even put in. Okay, but the better question is, why does that even matter? Why would you pay a higher fee because you didn't put in a zip code? Well, they'll tell you that, because there's a higher risk of fraud. Okay, that sounds good, right? But here's the thing. Who eats the fraud? Not the processor. So if, let's say you're selling, let's say t-shirts, and you send a box of t-shirts to somebody, you didn't put in a zip code, and it turned out to be fraud. Well, guess who loses? The business that shipped a box of the t-shirts. So you're getting penalized for not putting in a zip code, but then you're also getting penalized because you're the one actually eating the loss. The processor didn't eat that loss. Visa and MasterCard didn't eat that loss. You did, right? So, I could go on and on about the deceptive part of all of that and the billing and the confusion to merchants. But yeah, that is one of the things that I find most staggering in this business is there again, just the deceptive billing in of itself, just the made up fees and overinflated fees and hidden fees. And again, the merchant has no idea. But to your point, and I apologize for rambling on a little bit there, but we're trained. We get a bill, we pay a bill, right? Who are we to question anybody, right? And where do we have that confidence to do that? And that's where we come in. We get on the phone and we go, hey, made up fee, junk fee. Yeah, that's a real fee, but you charge the merchant 10 times what the actual fee even is. So because we came out of it, so we know the business. So it gives us the ability, with confidence to be able to go back and, put things in order.
I would love for you to also describe how your audit approach has helped businesses evolve in changing their financial practices to be far more effective. You were discussing revenue earlier, but in terms of the actual financial practices itself, how has your business actually helped, or how has your audit approach rather helped other businesses evolve in that way? Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that's helped them is not only do we save them money, which obviously helps them tremendously, we also give them the confidence to realize, hey, if they're doing this here, what else are they doing, right? Is my shipping company taking advantage of me? Is my utility company taking advantage of me, right? And really kind of going in and looking at, okay, what other vendors do we use, right? That might just be padding our bills that we don't even know about. It gives them kind of the confidence and better yet, the awareness. And that's what I kind of talk about in my book a lot, is really just having a mind shift to be aware. In other words, these are not your friends. I know they take you golfing. I know they want to come by and just hang out with you and love on you and all that. But yeah, I'd take you golfing too if you wanted to give me a couple $1 million a year in excess profits, right? I'd take you golfing. I'd even maybe buy you a boat. So let you go boating on your own. You don't even have to ride on mine. I'd take you out, let you have your own. So just having that awareness to start really looking and to realizing, hey, everything's maybe not as simple as it looks,
Do you have maybe a practical example to share of a business whose financial effectiveness has actually improved once you approach things with an audit?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of those again that have, because they're again the things that we've shed light on, that they've gone back and really looked at other things and other areas as well as obviously the things that we've cleaned up for them. And obviously this allows them to utilize that money to grow their business. I mean, because that's the thing. I mean, imagine if, and I tell my clients all the time when I'm talking to them, I'm like, hey, if you can think of a way I can add $1 million back to my bottom line, that'd be great, right? Because I got a lot of things I would like to do with that money. And so we help businesses, again, with not only awareness, but their, again, reality of putting that money back to their bottom line. And again, I know we're talking about millions, and I just want to be clear. I mean, yes, some of our larger accounts are very large, global, publicly traded accounts. But just to be clear, our smallest account is a dry cleaner, right? So, I mean, and what we also find is while the big numbers are in the big companies, a big percentage spread is in the little companies, meaning we found people, especially that were, America was not their, or I should say English wasn't their primary language, right? They've come to America, they've started a company, but they struggle. And what happens is we find those companies sometimes being overbilled as much as 7%. I mean, that's insane. 7% that these companies were paying. But when they look at their statements, it all only looks like they're paying under 2%, right? It's so deceptive. So, I get interviewed a lot, and sometimes I'm in a green room and people say, what are you on the show for? And I'm telling them, they're like, oh, I've got a great deal. And I'm like, you know how many times I've heard that? Like, everybody thinks they have a great deal, right? That's, and of course you think you have a great deal. That's because you that's why you signed up. You never signed up with a company that you thought was ripping you off. You signed up with a company you thought was giving you a good deal. So that kind of breaks my heart too. I mean, I was born and raised in America, but only, third generation. So when my great grandparents came here, I'm sure they were taken advantage of. So, that's one of the things there again, that we're very compassionate to these businesses. We really want to help them, which is why we don't take a percentage of their savings and things like that. We get a very small fee. And even that, we just say, hey, if you don't love what we've done for you, you don't even have to pay us. So we try to give back everything and most importantly, give them confidence that we're here to help them and not hurt them. We don't lock them into contracts and things like that. I mean, we're just very much, hey, if we can help you, great. And if you want to stay with us, great. But if you don't, not a problem.
The dangers of hidden fees in credit card processing, they are obviously so many. And besides the fact that, it's terms that you don't understand, based on your expertise, why also would you say that so many businesses fail to actually catch these costs?
They think they've got a good deal because they think they have a low rate. And that can be very deceptive because, people will look at a discount rate and think, that's what the processor is supposed to charge. And they look at that and they think, okay, this is what I'm going to watch. This is what I'm going to monitor, that discount rate. But there are many other things that come into play, and mostly interchange management, meaning how those cards settle, how those cards actually pay out. So prime example, a transaction that can clear at a little over 0.5%, mind you, right, can also clear just under 4%. And a lot of that is just the technology that they're using to process that credit card, right? So that's 3.5% roughly spread of what they could pay versus what they are paying. And that's really no one's fault other than the fact that they're set up wrong and using the wrong technology, the wrong setup, MCC codes. And I don't want to get into too much of the depth because that'll bore everybody to death. But suffice to say, businesses just look at that discount rate and they think, okay, this is it. No, there's so many other moving parts. It's like going to the grocery store and looking at the price of milk and saying, okay, this is a good store to shop at because the milk is cheap. And that's great if you're only buying milk. But if you're forced to buy the entire Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner, right? You got to buy a lot of other things. And if you're putting your focus in one area, right, which is what stores often do, they'll run ads. Hey, we got this on sale. We got this on sale. Yeah, well, go snag up all the things on sale, right? But they may be charging you twice the amount on some of the other items. And so that's just a big problem for businesses, that they really get hyper-focused on one area. And then there again, when they do find out, they don't want to take it back to their boss, or they think they can fix it on their own. But I always kind of say, don't make that mistake, because if you could fix it on your own, you wouldn't be in this boat. I mean, you would have already caught it. You have already fixed it, because like I mentioned earlier, they can just rename the hidden fee or the inflated fee and then just keep on going. So yeah, you lose interchange settlement fee, but you get, I can't even think now, being live here, but some of the other different names that they use. And I list a bunch of them in my book. So you can go out and kind of look at that as well as a reference of some of the different more common fees that they'll throw in there.
Robert, I would like to bring your attention to a study that was done by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners that found organizations had lose an estimated 5% of their annual revenues to fraud, to waste, to errors, as you've been mentioning earlier, with audits obviously often serving as the first line of defense in identifying and addressing these issues. Now, realistically, and you were mentioning, 7%, one thinks 7% and you don't think it's such a high percentage. But I mean, when you look at a loss of 5% even, that needing to have been there in the first place, you realize that is like a lot of money, whether you're a small business or you're, a larger enterprise. Money is money. It's money you're pouring into your business that's just kind of like, running out. And that you're never going to be able to get back. So what I would love for you to share with us is a real life success story where an audit led to transformative financial recovery for a business. Do you have anything to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's many companies that kind of are in that boat. There again, where we're finding as much as 2 to 3%. And again, this is just on their merchant fees. So, to their point that, there's a waste of around 5%. And then, businesses really need to think about in this is that, really a lot of companies operate only on about a 5 to 10% margin profit, right? So imagine you're a business at 5% profit, right? Well, with 5% lost and basically just in unfound money, if you will, right? In whether it be shipping costs, credit card processing costs, utilities, you name it, then that's what they're kind of referring to in that. There again, that total 5% means that you're giving, or I should say, these people are taking, right, as much in profit from your company as you are. I mean, think about that. I mean, you've built this company, you've spent so much money, you've maybe risked your home, your children's education funds, everything, trying to build this company, because building a company is not easy, or whether you're a large enterprise company, but you're giving away or having taken from you almost as much money, right? And these type of fees, these inflated fees, junk fees, etc., that what you're using to operate as a profit, right? Which is just insane. And even companies that yield 10%, which is really good profit margin, they're still losing half of their profit to somebody like Visa, MasterCard, processors, etc. And that's just there. I mean, again, because I don't want this to be single focus on just the audits we do, because there are utility audits, shipping audits, other type of audits. I mean, the bottom line is companies need to make sure that they're partnering with experts in these arenas. Now, there again, and I say experts, they need to be careful because so many people claim to be experts, right? I mean, that's a kind of a thing. If you look at our competitors, they all say experts on their website. Interestingly enough, you just go out and look at their LinkedIn profiles, you'll find that they've never even worked in this business. right? So they're industry experts, I guess, in their own mind, but they have zero credibility, zero credentials. So, but I would think that could be true in a lot of different industries. So there again, if you're dealing with somebody who's doing a shipping audit for you, you want to find out, do they have the credentials? Were they an executive VP, for instance, for UPS before they're trying to do a shipping audit? I mean, if they worked at I don't know, selling cars last week and all their career, and all of a sudden they want to do shipping audits because they think they figured out a little something, that's not somebody I'm going to want to get in business with. So, I would caution businesses to make sure that they're not getting locked into contracts, and stuff like that. If somebody's saying, hey, I'm going to do an audit for you or take 50% of whatever I find, because you can always negotiate one fee down. I mean, that's like going there again to the grocery store and saying, hey, I'll buy all my food here, but you got to come down 50 cents on the price of milk. And if you do that, I'll buy everything else here. Well, if that store manager's smart, he goes, done, right? I'll come down 50% on my milk, right? If you don't mind me charging you twice on your produce and twice on your dairy and everything else. So, even choosing somebody to help you can be very, very, tricky and very full of complexities. So make sure that, they're doing their homework on that as well. And if they follow me or they go to our website, they can look at a lot of articles we write. We also write a lot of articles for like Forbes. Recently, I just got picked up by a newer magazine, etc. So, they want to make sure that they're reading and those articles, because I'll go into a lot of depth in those articles too about really making sure how to do your homework, if you will.
What specific metrics or KPIs do you think executives should monitor to ensure their cost-saving measures are effective and are sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, if they were just looking at for at least our industry, right? In the merchant processing space, I mean, and now the processors are getting a little deceptive here again. They know the businesses are doing this, so they're shifting everything off by 1 month. So in other words, your January fee, numbers that you run, they'll show you the fees that they took out on your February statement. So then they're not lining up. So you should have a statement, first of all, that has your fees for that month on the fees that you ran that month. So in other words, your January processing with your January fees. That's the first thing they need to validate, right? Then if they validate that, then they can take the fees and divide it back into their volume of their processing. And they really should be no more than about 2.25%. And that's not to say that they couldn't save money, but they need to at least be there, right? Another thing that they could look at is their actual discount rate. And there again, even a small company should be paying, no more than 5 basis points, 7 at the outside. So they need to look at those on their statement, and they may not know where to find those, but if they can either come to like us, they can ask their processor, hey, show me where my discount rate is on my statement so that I can see it.
How can businesses involve their teams in building a cost-conscious culture without creating resistance or fear of cuts? So, for example, you're going through this with your business, and you're now discovering that, you're sitting with some financial issues. You've now discovered these hidden costs. It's almost like trying to educate, the staff themselves to adapt what you as an executive is also seeing within your business, So it's creating that culture within the organization itself.
Well, I think, the main thing is, and again, I wrote a chapter in a book with Steve Forbes called Successonomics, and I kind of address that a little bit in there. And, I talk about the fact that, everybody kind of thinks that the duck, or the goose rather, that loads or lays the eggs, that's great, the golden eggs rather. But then, it's kind of like everybody says, well, it's not my job to feed that goose, right? It's somebody else's job. But the thing of it is, then everybody says, oh, wait, I'm getting laid off. The company needs to cut costs, because staff is the first thing that gets let go. That's always the first thing it goes, right? Because it's easy. I mean, you can let somebody go and go, man, we just saved 50,000 or 100,000. It's hard to find 100,000 or 50,000 in other places. So, and so quickly, right? And so you can just say to, hey, 2 employees, we're cutting your third, person here. And now you guys are just going to have to pick up the slack and work harder, right? So this thing that it's not my job or it's not my money, right? I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. And I remember sitting down with somebody years ago that I could save them $40,000. It wasn't a ton of money, but I said to him, I'm like, I'm surprised you're not moving forward. I go, I'm going to do you and me both a favor. I'm just going to ask you one question, and then I'm never going to bug you again. But I'll do that, right? If you give me a straight answer, and, then I'll do you the favor of never calling you back, right? But I'm curious, why are you not moving forward? Give me a real answer. Don't just brush me off, but what's the real answer? Why you're not moving forward on this 40 grand? She goes, it's not my money. She goes, it's the people's upstairs money, right? She goes, it's not my cash. So you're just giving me one more thing to do. Why should I care? Right? I said, oh, yeah. Why should you care? I said, because think about it. I go, at some point, if this company goes out of business, and man, we see that all the time. We probably lose 5 clients a year to going out of business. I mean, think about that. I mean, I just saw a thing on a plane. I was just flying. And man, oh my gosh, there's so many businesses that are scheduling to close all these locations, right? Some of these big brand names are going out of business. They're saying in 2025, they're already planning to close down the whole company. And then there were probably 100 more that were like closing, some of them over 100 locations, right? And yeah, so everybody's now going to be losing their job. Now they're going to, and with everybody else closing, right, stores and locations, where are they going to go to work, right? So jobs will be harder to find. And so you've got to run or work at a company like you own that company. I mean, that's why I tell my employees, you need to work here like you own it, right? I mean, spend money if it was yours. Don't be extravagant when you go here or go there when you have a corporate card. Treat the company like you own it.
Can you provide an example of how a lack of accountability directly impacted a business's profitability or reputation? Do you have any examples to share with us?
Well, I mean, again, I know that not everybody signs up with us, and we kind of keep track of companies and stuff that we do audits for, and I don't know that this is directly related, but I think companies will come to us and will find a lot of overbilling and they don't move forward. And then fast forward, 6 months, a year, we find out these companies are going out of business. Now, I think the reason they didn't move forward with us is because they probably thought, we can fix this on our own. Why pay them even a small fee? I mean, because we're hurting already so bad. This is why they came to us for an audit, right? Because they're hurting. But then they're like, yeah, but we're hurting so bad. We don't even want to pay you a fee to fix it. We'll just figure it out on our own now that you've shown put a light on it. So, and then they end up going out. I guess, again, what I would caution businesses to do is make sure they're finding the right help, right? And not trying to manage everything they're on their own. Because, I used to sit on a board and there was an executive board that was over us, and they had the final say, and yet this association I was on, they were, going down for the past 10 years, losing more and more members, losing more and more money. And I just said, if I don't mind, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to say something that's probably going to be very offensive. But I said, because they kept saying, what do you think we can do, with fresh set of eyes, right? And I said, all of you resign. They're like, what? And I said, under your leadership, it's failing. then cut and go, right? And I've said the same thing to, my team. I said, if I don't feel like I can grow this company, then I'm going to step aside and I'm going to let some other CEO come in and take my place, right? So, that's what a company has to do. They have to take a hard look and see if things aren't working. Maybe they need to replace themselves, or they need to partner with companies and pay those companies that can get them out of the mess that they're in. Well, and the thing of it is, we do have a, no contract scenario, but I mean, we're over 15 years old, and our original clients are still with us. I mean, so most everybody, I will say, thankfully, they realize the value that we bring and they stay with us. Like I say, that the main reason we lose business is not for people not really wanting to pay our fees as much as companies that have gone out of business. Or they get acquired. I mean, we have that happen as well, but our clients are very loyal to us. I mean, overall, our clients are very, very loyal. They realize, the rate of return, the ROI, I mean, really runs anywhere from almost $1,000 to even sometimes over $2,000 or 2,000%. So, I mean, that's quite a rate of return, right? And so, a small company that we may be saving $20,000 a year for, they're paying us $2,000 a year, right?
Yeah. So in the long run, it's a fantastic investment into your organization. I want to shift the conversation a little bit now, Robert, to AI. And what I would like to know is, have you actually witnessed a shift in how AI is reshaping cost optimization and credit card auditing?
I mean, AI is great. I mean, we use it all the time in different things. But I will say, in this space, as far as auditing goes, it's not there. We still have to do everything the old-fashioned way. AI does, a lot of things. And the biggest thing with AI, I know that there's two sides kind of on this AI thing, right? There's people who, I don't even get it. I mean, and other people who use it for everything, or maybe more than they should. But AI is really like having an office partner with an amazing memory, right? And a second opinion, if you will, meaning it's not perfect. So we'll run a lot of case scenarios through it, especially like when I write articles and stuff. Because I'll tell it to read my other articles. So it knows me, it knows my writing style. So I can say, hey, write something on this. Well, it's only going to write about 70% of it. And then I'm going to take over and edit about 30% of it. So it saves me a little time so I can get more content out. But, when it comes to the merchant processing auditing itself, AI is just not there yet. Now, I believe it will be. I believe at some point it's going to get better and better. Or maybe even let me back up and say we'll get better and better. Meaning, what I find with AI is the more we can figure out how to utilize it, right? So the question is it its limitations or our limitations, right? So, because the more we're learning constantly how to get more from it. So I think it's there. We just haven't maybe figured out how to utilize it more effectively for us yet.
Do you think there's actually significant risks associated with relying too heavily on AI in financial operations? Is this something that you would say you would kind of stay away from and still have that human eye, always overlooking things? Yeah.
I mean, interestingly enough, in my later in life years, I'm going back to school and taking classes and stuff. And so I was working on a homework assignment, and it was a very, very heavy financial assignment. And they even said, hey, you can use whatever tools, right? Because back years ago, you used to use Texas Instrument calculators, right? Well, so you can utilize AI. right? But it didn't get everything right. Right. So again, it did some things well and it saved some time. Right. But there's a lot that it got wrong. So if you totally rely on it and just say, okay, here, let me submit my homework. Right. Don't be surprised if you get a C, because it's not doing everything completely yet. Again, it's getting smarter every day. And again, I would say maybe that's partially too because people just don't know how to phrase the questions right, how to load things correctly. And, and of course I use the paid version where I'm teaching it. So when it does get things wrong, I tell it where it gets things wrong. And I find that it gets better over time. But if you're just going to upload some financial data and say, hey, tell me this or tell me that, or forecast this or that, no, you're going to be in a world of hurt if you just go with those answers.
Robert, as someone who's dedicated your career to bringing transparency to financial operations, what do you believe are the most overlooked qualities that executives should prioritize when choosing a financial auditing partner? And then how can businesses ensure that their chosen partner aligns with their values and their long-term growth objectives?
A is making sure they have the expertise, validating their LinkedIn profiles, their work history, and things of that nature, maybe even talking to some of their larger accounts. And don't get me wrong, I mean, these companies can save a company money, but it doesn't mean that they've saved all the money. Like for instance, we had a company that came to us that used another competitor, and they saved him some money. They said they did. They said they saved around $40,000 a year, but they left over $200,000 on the table, right? So again, you have to make sure somebody's got the expertise. I mean, you wouldn't call up somebody that does claims to be an expert in brain surgery, but's never worked in brain surgery. They're not even a doctor for that matter. So you want to just make sure they've got the expertise. And you can validate that. And then second of all, to make sure that they're not going to lock you into a contract and say, hey, we're going to take this much of your savings, et cetera. Because if they don't deliver, then they'll say, hey, there's no harm if we don't deliver. Well, but there is harm because you're locked into a contract and now you can't use anybody until your contract's expired. So I get agreements in certain situations, and those need to be in place, but this is not one of them, which is why we don't have one. So we want to make sure that, we can deliver because, again, if you're losing even a few 100,000, 50,000, 60,000, depending on your size, right? A company, it's all going to be relative. In other words, a company that's losing 50,000, that's just as important to them as a company losing 5 million. Right? Because they're smaller, right? So it's a percentage really of their profit more than the dollar value, if you will. And so they need to make sure that they're not under contract or they can't be locked in to where they can't get help if they need it.
Would you then say that these are the key factors that actually help you to earn your trust with your clients and actually build successful partnerships with them?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest thing that we hear a lot is companies say, yeah, I talked to the other guys and they want a percentage of the savings. They want to lock us into contracts and all that. Where we, on the other hand, we're very different. We have a small upfront fee, but then we say, hey, you got 60 days. If you don't love the results, we'll give you back every dime, set you on your merry way. And then if you decide to stay, you're going to pay us month to month. And if you want to leave, leave, because again, I kind of tell people, maybe it's my age in life, but I want to be happy. And I go, and I don't want to be married to somebody who's yelling at me all the time. So I don't want to have an unhappy client that's yelling at me. So I'm like, if you don't love what we do, no harm, no foul, go yell at somebody else. So, we only want to work with companies that absolutely love us and we love them. And it's also say we do way too much for way too little, to have unhappy, relationships.
When businesses expand, the financial complexities often increase. So, what strategies do you recommend for executives to future-proof their financial systems?
Well, I mean, yeah, there again, as you're thinking about expanding, all the more probably reason why you want to get an audit done before you even expand. I think so many small companies will even say, I'm only losing $20,000. It's not a lot of money right now, right? But, and I always remind them, but guess what? If you double your volume next year, then 20,000 becomes 40,000, right? And then all of a sudden you grow and grow. But here's the problem too, and I can share this from my own experience of my own mistakes, right? I mean, we went through 5 different CRMs before we landed on the one that we're on now, which would have been there 10 years, right? But even now, my IT team's telling me we may have to make another change, right? And I'm like, oh man, I mean, come on, you're killing me, man. I mean, I don't want to make a change because growth is painful, right? It's good, but it can be painful. So, make sure you got the right CRMs, make sure you got the right partners, make sure you got the right vendor relationships, make sure you got everything that will scale, right? Because if you're thinking, well, I'm not doing that much, so this is all I need. No, I mean, you've really... it's like getting married and buying a motorcycle and thinking that's going to be your car for life, right? Well, when you have 3 kids and a wife, that's not going to fit. And business is no different. As businesses grow, their systems have to be able to expand. Their vendor relationships have to be able to expand. And so they need to think about that when they're, today, don't look at what's today. You should always, as any good CEO, should be looking 5 to 10 years down the road. And then the question is, who are you partnering with today? Will they be able to be with you in 5 to 10 years?
So speaking about the next 5 to 10 years, what emerging financial technologies or trends do you think executives should be paying close attention to?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be self-serving, but I'm going to go back to my own industry. I mean, credit card processing has become more deceptive over the last 10 years than it ever was before. I don't know enough about maybe some of the other industries out there to really speak with authority on those, other than the fact that you just see that deception in industry overall, so just really, again, just doing your due diligence to make sure you're partnering with somebody that's going to be there and be trustworthy. As a good CEO, CFO, et cetera, it is vendor relationships. To think that they can do it all, no. You're there to manage it all, not do it all. Because I know we use probably 20 different vendors in our relationship to help run our company. And this is my 3rd company to run. And I can tell you the very first one, which didn't last too long, I did it all, right? I mean, but the mistake I made there is that's just it. I didn't rely on experts, right? I relied on my own skill set, which was very limited, but that was short-sighted. But I think most companies out there probably know this. I mean, I don't think I'm sharing anything too new with them that they need great vendor relationships, and partners to help them grow their business.
Yeah, definitely. Robert, thank you so much for joining us on the DesignRush podcast. Your knowledge was invaluable and definitely provided so many insightful moments into what I feel is personally a very fascinating side of the industry, and you're like in this cornerstone of it, and creating that awareness is so important for organizations to understand, for your brand, brand and agency owners to know and understand, because it's what can really help you in the long run in terms of revenue growth and also just making sure that your business is on even keel, So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune into our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush podcast and stay ahead of the competition.